Alrighty, so could you give me your name and your position at Ubisoft?
Hi, my name's Alex Hutchinson, and I'm creative director of Far Cry 4 here at Ubisoft Montreal.
What's it like being nominated for the D.I.C.E award, and where were you when you first heard about it?
Video game development is a long and slow process. Feels fast, I think, when you're communicating about it or when people are reading about it, but it's usually years of your life. So it's always great to be recognized as one of the better games of the year. So it's always great, especially the Dice Awards, which have a long pedigree and are one of the good ones. And so, yeah, no, we get these the same way we get everything via an email. So we got the email at our desks, but it was good to see that we're up for a few Dice Awards, including Game of the Year.
And on to one of the fan questions. So Twitter user Massive Fish asks, any word on a co-op map editor?
Yes, we are patching the map editor to include co-op. It may even be out by the time these Dice Awards are going live. So hopefully you already have it. If you don't already have it, it will be very, very soon.
During the development of Far Cry 4, what was one of your biggest challenges you had to overcome?
Game development is kind of a series of challenges that evolve over time. So it's hard to sort of pick one. I think with any franchise game, it's finding new things that will excite people and hopefully attract some new players, as well as making sure that you satisfy the people who are fans of the brand. So it was picking those elements to improve, those elements to play with, and it's an ongoing process. So I think making sure we got co-op in there without breaking the single player was probably our biggest challenge.
And on that same note, what is one of your biggest accomplishments that you're really proud of?
I think I'm most proud of making a game in which the player is the star, and having an open world and a set of challenges, outside of the main narrative that you alone or you with your friend can engage with and solve problems your own way, take it your own pace, tell your own stories, and I think we really delivered on that promise, and so that's really gratifying.
So Twitter user Nomin asks, when creating Far Cry 4, were there any limitations in results of using the engine from previous Far Cry games?
I think in terms of engines and evolving from previous games, one of the strengths is you can start to focus on interesting problems instead of the basic questions of getting something animating on screen, getting something up and running. So I like working with existing base technology, although obviously you need to pick your targets for brand new innovative tech. So I think it was a nice balance between being able to build up something strong and still having room to innovate and do something fresh. So I think it's a good situation to be in.
And what about you yourself? What is one of the biggest impacts in terms of media that had on your life so far? In terms of TV, movie, music?
In terms of media that impacted me the most, probably, I'll go with hardware just because it sort of encapsulates a lot of stuff. But the Amiga 500 was my obsession when I was growing up. It's more of a European Australian piece of kit as a home computer and gaming machine, but it was the birth of the God genre. Games like SimCity and Populous. It had amazing strategy games, great action games. At Ultima, Ultima 6 was amazing. The Team 7 games, the Bitmap Brothers, the Sensible Software teams. I mean, there was so much great stuff there that it really changed my world.
Twitter user at Zurich Lauren asks, what inspired your storyline and how did you come up with it?
It's a funny one with the storyline because for me, on one level, I've started to find video game narrative very problematic in that I think the more interesting story is the story the player tells themselves. And yet we use just traditional narrative to give games structure and provide goals because we haven't yet really solved the problem of how to give you a long-term goal and make you feel like you're making progress toward it without this backbone. So the story in a lot of ways is us telling a joke about how even though you're here to scatter your mother's ashes, you're not really. As a player, you never met your mother. It's a MacGuffin, and there's multiple endings where Pagan Min or other characters will make fun of you for pretending that that's your goal. So on one level, for me, the inspiration was at least to have fun with players who are have played story after story in a video game when really what they want to do is engage with their own play. So that on that level, but then as well, we tried still to make sure the players who wanted to play earnestly had some meat in there to chew on as well.
At Oliver Pete asks, what inspired you to create Kirot rather than a real area? And on the same note as well, at Jacob Frida also asks, what gave you the inspiration behind the world of Shangri-La?
Yeah, so the world of Karat, it's all it's in the Far Cry DNA, I think, to take a real place as inspiration and then create a fictional version of that. Mostly because it avoids the more literal questions of why is there a tree here or a building not here or a landmark missing or added. So it allows us to make something that feels like a real place and is tangible and believable, but at the same time, we can tweak it for gameplay. So that's the basic reason, so that people are just focusing on, is it an awesome place to explore? Is it filled with secrets and fun places to be? And then we don't get onto the more literal questions of history and geography. In terms of Shangri-La, I know the team who worked on Far Cry 3, many of whom followed through on Far Cry 4, saw the strong reaction to the more outlandish elements in that game. So the sort of trippier, druggy sequences, and wanted to bring them forward into Far Cry 4. But if you remember, they were basically experience moments. There was no gameplay in them. So the idea with Shangri-La was to say, what if we could create something extreme and different and put gameplay in it? So that's the big inspiration for that. And I like the idea that you could never, it would be harder on a AAA level to make a fantasy shooter these days. But when I was growing up, we played games like Hexen, which I really loved. And just the idea that we could make a 5-hour sort of tribute to those more unusual shooters inside of Far Cry 4, I think is a lot of fun.
Mm. Other than the release of Far Cry 4, obviously, what was one of your favorite gaming memories from 2014?
Favorite gaming memories, gosh. I guess I'll go with, I'll call out one of the other games that's up for a lot of D.I.C.E awards, in that I thought Shadows of Mordor's step into sort of more structural narrative in the gaming space was really exciting, and I think that's a doorway into something a lot of us are pursuing in different ways. So I thought that was a great thing to see reach fruition on the big stage.
Last two questions from me. What are you looking most forward to in 2015?
2015. I'm looking at 2015 is I think the start. When we before this generation, I think it almost happens from memory every generation, but it's a lot of doom and gloom about big games and ambitious games and how the consoles are going to die and no one wants these massive projects anymore. And I think you see that the sales of the Xbox One and PS4 are terrific, and there are lots of great games coming out. But we're about to hit that sort of start of the core experience of this generation, I think, where we see people have had some time with the hardware, people have had some time working on their engines, and I think it's going to be a sequence of content-driven games. There's not a lot of cheap tricks in the hardware, so I think you're going to see people having big ideas and taking bold leaps, and I think it's going to be a great time to be a gamer.
And my final question to you is to any aspiring game developers, game designers out there that want to be where you're at, what tips would you give them or motivational advice?
I think if you want to get into the games industry these days, it's never been better. And in a weird way, it's always very difficult. But at the same time, there are so many more avenues now. You can work for the major publishers. You can go indie. You can, when people like Amazon are getting into the gaming space, there's opportunity out there. It's sort of find an entry point anywhere you can, and work extremely hard, and you'll get a shot.
Awesome. So thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
No problem.
Again, looking forward to seeing you at the D.I.C.E Awards Thursday, February 5th at 7 o'clock p.m. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy. Have a good one.
You too. Take care.